Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen, where we talk about mindset, money, and the new economy. I'm Doc Favors, and I first want to say I appreciate all of you all who take the time to rock out with your boy who have subscribed to the channel. And that really helps us get this out to the masses. But for those of you who have not subscribed, I got a report right here that literally says about 40% of you all who are watching, but you haven't subscribed. And ladies and gentlemen, it would really do me a favor if you would consider subscribing and hitting the like button, turn the bell notification on, because that helps us keep everything I'm doing here free content so that we can continue to deliver these content, these thought-provoking subjects, and some of the tips and strategies that we're sharing for you all. Okay. So that being said, let's get right into it, guys. We got a banger for today. It is something different, and I believe it's one of the biggest financial stories of our time. As a matter of fact, it's one of the biggest financial stories of our generation. And it isn't really about Bitcoin, but it has something to do with it. It's talking about the new economy. And the question is, if Michael Saylor saw the new economy coming, did you? And so here's what I want to start by asking you. What if it's actually about recognizing that the economy is changing before everyone else sees it? I want you to think about that. Now, I'm going to be showing you a clip about Michael Saylor in just a moment, but it's important to know that Michael Saylor made a decision several years ago that actually many people thought was crazy. He began moving his company's treasury strategy heavily towards Bitcoin. Now, people criticized him, people questioned him. Some thought he was taking an enormous risk. But whether you agree with Michael Saylor or not is not what I'm here to argue. I think there's something much bigger that we can learn from his strategic moves. And what that simply is, you all, is that he recognized that the rules of the economy were changing. And he decided he wasn't going to wait until everyone else figured it out. And that's what I want to talk to you about or talk about to you today, because I believe we're entering in what we calling the new economy. So with that being said, I want to take you to a clip. Now, this is a clip by a gentleman by the name of Stephen Bartlett. He is I think, the founder or owner of the podcast called The Daily CEO. And this is a clip right here, but we're going to break it down. We're going to analyze it a little bit. But there's something that I really want to share with you all. So I'm going to share a little bit and I'm going to do some commentary. Y'all know how we get down. So let's just take a listen at this.
I always wanted to make a technical contribution. So the early business was business intelligence. So how do you extract intelligence from large raw data sources? And that was what MicroStrategy did. We created a global business intelligence company. And I think in 2020, when the COVID lockdowns took place and the world turned upside down, that was when I discovered my greatest idea. And it wasn't even my idea, right? It was Satoshi's idea, but I discovered Bitcoin in 2020. And the company today is $60 billion, but we peaked about 125 billion. So we got somewhere between 100 and 200 times bigger since we discovered Bitcoin.
And when you speak to the general public now, when you do podcasts like this, what is the essence of the message that you're aiming to communicate to them?
Now listen.
Bitcoin is digital empowerment, digital capital. We're living through the digital transformation of assets. And this is just as profound transformation as digital intelligence. The real profound breakthrough of Bitcoin is this idea that you can take economic energy, convert it to digital form, and tightly bind it to the person, the family, the company, the country. We can talk about how we all hate countries, but the history of the world is all the weak countries getting smashed by all the big countries. So if what you're interested in is empowerment and fairness and equity for the small company, the small family, the small person, the small country, the weak, how do you do it? Well, you basically encrypt the money, put it in cyberspace, protect it with a private key. It's like now you can actually own something and someone more powerful than you can't take it away from you.
Now let me pause it right here, because I want you to know, you all, for listening to what Michael Saylor is saying right there. He's talking about AI. He's talking about crypto. He's talking about blockchain. Even going to mention a little bit on tokenization when I get into it. But I want you to understand, for many of us, at least those who are, say, 48 and above, most of our lives, we were taught a fairly simple financial formula. Go to school, get a good job, work hard, save your money, buy a house. You're going to hear Michael Saylor say, don't buy a house right now. I mean, he's going to break it down. But that's what we were taught. Put some money into a retirement account and eventually retire, live a nice life. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything inherently wrong with that or wrong with those, with that ideology or with those suggestions. In fact, many of them are still important today. You do want to save for retirement. You do want to, position yourself with some, you know, right money goals and so on and so forth. But here's the question that I've been really asking myself, what prompted me to do this video is simply this: is that enough for the world we're moving into? See, 20 years ago, that was fine. You heard him. After COVID, Bitcoin changed his whole business strategy. And so you take a look at what's happening right now. If you don't believe me, go Google artificial intelligence or AI and how it's changing the workplace. Go workplace. Go Google blockchain and see how it's changing how we literally are thinking in terms about ownership and transactions. Assets are becoming digital. Tokenization is creating new ways of representing ownership. Companies, you all, are exploring blockchain infrastructure. And Bitcoin has grown from something many people dismissed. Remember, 4 or 5 years ago, they said it wasn't going to do nothing, wasn't going anywhere. So now there is many people dismiss this. They once dismissed it as internet money. Now they're talking about it being a real asset being discussed by corporations and large financial institutions, big governments. The question is, what changed? You see, as we get into this a little deeper, I'm going to show you that what I find, or that's why I find that Michael Saylor, you all, in the story he just told, I find it so interesting because the lesson isn't simply go buy Bitcoin. All right, it's other currencies. The whole thing you want to think about is crypto wholly. And that's why I'm not telling you, once again, or let me just say, I'm not a financial advisor. So I can't be your financial advisor. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only. But here's the thing. The bigger lesson is about recognizing the change. Saylor looked at cash sitting on a corporate balance sheet and began asking different questions. Instead of simply asking how much money do we have, I would like to believe he started asking about what happens to the purchasing power of that money over long periods of time when economies are buckling and going under. That changed the whole conversation for me because I'm asking that same question now as I'm dealing with retirement, of course, with health and wellness, with medication that's sky high. We got to deal with these things. And so with that change the conversation, eventually his company adopted Bitcoin as a primary treasury reserve asset. We had to adopt some cryptos and some other things and businesses so that we can use as a primary reserve asset. So think about that mindset behind a decision like that. This man wasn't simply looking at what he worked in the past. He wasn't just looking at things he used to do. He wasn't so strict in terms of a fixed mindset. No, he was trying to literally understand what might matter in the future. And I might say the near future. That's the lesson I want you to catch today. Because sometimes positioning yourself for what's next requires you to stop looking exclusively at what worked yesterday. Got to have a growth mindset, an open mindset, okay? And so I want to go back to the video because he's going to go into he's going to go deeper into a few more things. So turn your volume up and let's listen at this.
Two types of money there in front of you. There's dollar bills, and then I've got a couple of Bitcoin on the table. What do you mean they can't take Bitcoin from you?
Okay, so this is a stack of currency. You walk through an airport on this. They ask you if you have cash. If you do, they just take it. Cash in a physical form is a problem. So what do? You put it in a bank. Well, the bank is a counterparty. So the bank then decides whether you get to keep it and whether you get it back. You go to the bank and you ask for it back. They might ask you why you ask for it back. If you ask for that much back, they file a form with the Treasury Department. If you ask for too much money back too soon, right, someone comes knocking on your door. So the challenge with this is fiat currency. And you hold this at the pleasure of the nation state. And by the way, not just your nation state, it's like every country on earth gets to decide whether you get to spend this stuff. right? Which is interesting. And if you want to actually transfer money to someone in another country, you need the permission of your bank, another bank, the central bank of their country, the correspondent bank. There might be 7 different banks that have to decide whether the money gets from here to there. So this is permissioned money, that's
Wow.
managed by the state. And with Bitcoin, I can take $1 million. I can actually encrypt it in a chip in a physical coin, the Cascacious coin, and that's $1 million. I slide it across, and it's literally a bearer asset, and so that's one manifestation of it. But you could also put it into information form. I could transfer this to you just in the form of a private key that I wrote on a piece of paper, and I gave to you.
So now watch this now. This man dropping some knowledge right here, y'all. Basically, what he's talking about is the old economy versus the new economy. Now, hear me out, y'all. Just hear me out. The old economy taught many of us, okay, that we were to go to work, we were consumers. It taught us how to earn some money, how to spend some money, how to save some money. That wasn't bad. Hopefully, accumulate enough to retire on. That's not bad. I'm not going against that. What I'm saying is now that the new economy is forcing us to learn more about technology. That's what he just said about assets, ownership, tokenization, participation. He said he can change that $1 million in form of a token. Because now you got AI, which is changing productivity. You got blockchain that's helping put digital ownership in the hands of you and I. That's what he's talking about. And so now when they talk about tokenization could change how assets are being presented and transferred, the man just said right there, literally, he can take this $1 million. But if you go to an airport and you try to take $1 million with you, it's going to be a problem. If you try to pull $1 million out your bank right now, you're going to have to go through some bells and whistles. They may not even be able to generate that. You might have to come back in 2-3 days. Then you got to fill out all this paperwork for them saying why. If you travel with more than 20,000 cash, you got to declare that. You see? So digital assets have created an entirely new asset class that I want you all to understand. Hence, new economy, digital money. So now hear me out. None of this means that every new technology or every new digital asset, y'all, is going to be a banger. It's going to be the thing for you to do. Now, that's not what I'm saying. Every new thing and every digital thing that come out, it may sound good, look good, but it may not be good. In fact, I believe the quite opposite is true, to be honest with you. And what do I mean? The faster technology moves, the more educated we have to become. So that means you don't participate or just jump on something just because it's new and it's shiny. Do you know how many people pitch me in my DMs? How many people just randomly starting to call now because we are generating a platform, we are really generating a brand, and they want to partner and thing, but just because that's so, that don't mean that I get off track and I lose focus. Now, some of those are great opportunities, which I'm entertaining some of them, but some that are not so good in terms of not being able to make or generate is just not in my lane. What I'm doing once again as a pastor, as a coach and a mentor, and some of the other things we're into, I have a strict piece about how many different ventures that I'm gonna get involved with. That's what keeps me safe, you all, because you can't look, you can't be all over the place. You can't have too many irons in the fire. You literally have to learn how to stay in your lane and study and research. So first of all, I don't get involved in nothing that I haven't studied or researched. And that's why I'm telling you all now. The faster technology moves, the more education you got to go and seek. You got to become more educated so that you know what's going on if you're going to participate in some of these plays, okay? And that means you have to be willing to learn enough to make an informed, educated decision. Informed decision. Now, once again, this type of stuff, it excites me because it also lets me know here's a multi-billionaire guy talking like this. It lets me know and it lets us know in our community that we're on the right track. Okay. He's going to talk about some other things, but I'm not going to keep it too long. But it's just a few things I need to share that I believe is important. So let's take another listen at this.
A series of letters you could give me.
Yeah, or I could send you a message. I could send a text message so good luck getting $1 million of gold from here to London if people don't want you to move it. But I could move $1 million of Bitcoin from here to anywhere in a few seconds. The idea was I don't want to trust Apple or Google or Morgan Bank or a central bank or a government, right? And so in the extreme case, 2 people can meet in Africa and I can trade you some Bitcoin for your truck. And I don't need the permission of 7 banks and 16 governments and
Now, let me just preface this. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I want you to understand something, what he just said, what he's saying. It's the principle. So there are other coins besides Bitcoin, okay? What the mindset, what I want you to understand is that this is where the real mindset shift comes in at, and where it becomes so important. Because there's generally two types of people who respond to this when it comes to world changes and world change. Some people say, well, I don't understand it, so it must not matter, it must be a scam. Other people say, I don't understand it yet, so I'm gonna just wait until somebody else do it first. Both of those two will have you stagnant and never be in position to take the risk or pull the trigger to get to where you want to be. And trust me when I tell you, just those two right there, those two mindsets are very different. And that's one of the biggest lessons that I take away from people like Michael Saylor. You don't have to agree with every decision he makes. You listen, you don't even have to believe in Bitcoin or how far it's going to go or where it's going to go in terms of price prediction. You don't have to do all that. What you should be asking yourself is, what does he see that makes him willing to go all in that I can't see or the world can't see? Now, that's a powerful question. What does this man see that made him change at the time Michael's strategy, now it's a strategy, change their whole situation and position to go toward the blockchain and everything that goes along with it? See, that's the new economy, you see? Now, I know it's a powerful question, but here's the thing. It moves you away from immediately judging something and someone towards start to figure out how to understand it. And that's what happened for me. When I first heard about Bitcoin, I was like, I don't know if I trust something that don't have a founder that we don't know. I didn't notice at the time, I wasn't supposed to necessarily be dialed into just the coin aspect, but it's the technology behind it. So you got blockchain, tokenization, artificial intelligence, all coming together. Let me make something very clear to you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not telling you to run out and just get all the Bitcoin and just go do all that. I'm not telling you because once again, I'm not a financial advisor. I ain't telling you to put all your money there. I'm not giving you financial advice. What I'm talking about is something very different. I'm talking about financial awareness. We've got to become more aware of not only our surroundings, but what's going on economically, what's going on with money and our relationship with money. I know the good books say, hey, for the love of money is the root of all evil. It didn't say you couldn't be rich. It didn't say being rich was the root of all evil. It didn't say being wealthy was the root of all evil. It's when you make it a master, when you make it an idol, is when you get in trouble because you're willing to do anything to please it. We don't do that with money. Money is a tool. Just like a hammer or a nail gonna build a house, money can build it as well. You just got to be a good steward. And that's a huge difference between chasing something and studying something. We study finances. I studied it so that I can get a handle on it to help my ministry and help my business and help people that I'm coaching and mentoring. So I don't want you chasing every coin either. I don't think you should be chasing every investment. You shouldn't be chasing every new company, every new technology, every new shiny thing. You do the research and find what you're passionate about. Well, I felt something right there. You find what you like to be involved in. So if you're a person who travels, it makes sense to get involved with a travel company. If you're a person who like trading and options or whatever, it makes sense. If you're in crypto, it makes sense. If you in insurance, it makes sense to make yours do that. All I'm saying is, y'all, we've got to open up our mind and have a conversation, just like they're having right here about the new economy. Take a listen. We're almost there, y'all.
32 other bureaucrats in order to buy that truck.
What is it that most people, the average person, doesn't understand about the nature of money as it's sat in their bank, as it relates to the debasement of it or the sort of inflation of it? Because most people think if they've got, $10,000 in their bank and they keep it there and maybe getting interest on it at 4% a year, they're going to be good.
So this is about $10,000, I guess. 1 acre of land in Miami Beach on the water cost $10,000 about 100 years ago. I know this because I have a house on the water and I have the deed of sale, and it was about on 2 acres and it was $20,000. The entire house cost $100,000, and it's about $20,000 worth of land. Today, 1 acre of land on the same acre on the water, $10 million, maybe $20 million. So, what happened here, right? It's the same dollar. It works out to be 1,000x increase in price. So when land goes from $10,000 to $10 million, that means that the currency, the dollar, the money, lost about 7% of its economic value every year for 100 years running. If you lose 7% a year, then you get cut in half, right? 10 times, right? So what do most people not know about money? What they don't realize is that the best currency, money being a medium exchange unit account store of value, the dollar, the best in the 20th century and the 21st century, the US dollar lost 7% of its value every year going for 100 years. That's the best it's ever going to get. It's not that good for everybody else. If you go to most other countries, they lose 14% of their value, and so they collapse in about 30 years. So what you have is a situation where if you store your wealth in currency and the money of the society, the question really is just, are you going to lose most of your money within 10 years? That's the weak currencies. And in Africa, for example, most currencies in Africa, you couldn't hold your wealth even for 10 years, maybe 5 years. Or are you going to lose all your money in 30 years? Hyperinflation happened in Brazil, happened in Argentina. That's Mexico. That's most places. And that's the status quo. The average fiat currency, collapses in about 29 years, I think. And then the best is if you happen to be a citizen of the greatest nation in the world and you win all the wars, you're just going to lose all your money. And, half-life is 35 years. You're going to lose your money over the course of 100 years.
So should I buy a house?
Now, before he gets into that question right there, I want you to understand what this means for you and I in terms of when I say, okay, so basically what I heard him say right there, you all, is don't chase. You should be learning, right? Notice how Stephen Bartlett asked the question, what don't we know about money? And then you heard Michael Saylor's answer. Look how deep that was. That was like so deep that, it was like, man, I haven't never thought about that in terms of looking up the figures and the numbers. And that says to me, I really got to learn how to understand the times we are in and where we're going. That means I want to understand AI. That means I want to understand blockchain. That means I want to understand tokenization and digitalization and nodes and the infrastructure behind how all this works. Now I know for some of you all, you say, man, I care less about that. But once again, the majority of you all who are on here, you all are we in the same niche together. You see, whether it's about retirement or just trying to increase your bottom line or just trying to, fire your boss, however you want to do it. This is what it is. But what I want you to understand is this right here. I don't believe in making life-changing or life-altering decisions when I'm not in the know about that area or field or what it's about. Ignorance is very dangerous, and some people like to be that way because they don't want the responsibility of it. I want education to help me prevent making a bad decision. And that to me is what he said. So now, of course, I'm taking what he said in the numbers and statistics. I'm talking from experience. My wife and I, we just sold a nice home for going to that town, I want to call Earthshot, but it was a nice price. Okay. It was a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, ensuite, fenced in, lanai, all of that, cut screen, lanai, covered back, all of that. But what I'm telling you all is from the experience, if you don't know about home buying and home selling, how to flip, then you can lose a lot of money because while that house sat on the market, I still had to pay for the yard to get cut. I'm giving y'all education now. I still had to pay for the electricity, the water, and the AC to run because nobody want to go into a hot house that's not moving. I still had to pay and make sure the realtors was getting their stuff to make sure they were staged and doing it right. All of that goes into when you're talking about flipping the house or, buying, selling, fixer up, or however you want to do it. Even if you're going to rent them out. You got to get the roof fixed. You got to get the HVAC fixed. You got to spray for all type of stuff, man. But if you don't educate yourself, that's how you lose money. A lot of people lose money because they want to get into it, rush into it, and just hurry up and turn a profit. No, no, no. Trust me when I tell you, don't chase that thing. Learn about that thing. That's what I heard from what Michael Saylor was saying right here. Okay, let's get ready to wrap it up, guys.
So you get to the next interesting point, which is that $100,000 in 1926 in Miami Beach today would be worth $100,000. That house, $50 to $100 million. So the house is better, right? In fact, if you're trying to preserve your wealth, you have to acquire scarce, desirable property. So your choice is, do I buy real estate? Do I residential real estate? Do I buy commercial real estate? Do I buy a private company? Do I buy a public company like stocks? Do I buy collectibles? So let me tell you why you shouldn't buy a house.
Let's hear.
Because there's a 2% property tax on houses in Florida, which means that if you buy a house, you pay 2% of the value every year. 2%, means that every 36 years, you actually pay the cost of the house in tax to the government. Not a very good store of value because you're taking on a massive tax load and you're taking on a maintenance load.
My
But
bad.
having said it,
Look at
it's
that.
still a better deal than just holding cash in a bank or holding cash in a safe. Commercial real estate looks a bit better, right? Because with commercial real estate, you can offset the tax, the insurance, and the maintenance cost with rents. So what really works out with commercial real estate most of the time is you buy $1 million commercial real estate, you have a bunch of fees, you charge rent. The rent offsets the maintenance cost. You don't really make any money on the rent, but the underlying $1 million appreciates 7% a year every year. And so you actually can build wealth with commercial real estate if you can just cover the maintenance expenses.
Most people are told that the way to build wealth when they leave university and they get into the working world is to buy a house. So most people, that's what most people do. They get a job, a 9 to 5, they take the money they get from that, they go and get a mortgage, they buy a house and they move in. That's kind of what we're all told implicitly. Is that a good strategy to build and become wealthy in your view?
The only way that it's a good strategy is you're buying the house in a jurisdiction where the property taxes are manageable, then yeah, you can generate some wealth. But if I flip that and you end up taking a 7% mortgage and you get massive tax and massive insurance expenses, then that same investment, works out the
Night
other way and it crushes you to death. So
nightmare.
a better idea generally is commercial real estate if you actually have the business acumen to get in the commercial real estate business because you can pass all the expenses through to your tenants. These things are all hard, right? Real estate business is hard. Starting your own company is hard.
Yeah.
Investing in other companies is hard. The conventional thing, the safe thing, is I just put all my money in a money market and I get paid 3%. And then after tax, I've got 1.5%. And the currency is losing 7% of its value a year. And you're just losing 5 or 6% of your wealth every year for your life. So that's why Bitcoin is such a compelling thing. That's why people that believe in Bitcoin are passionate about it, because the average person shouldn't have to be a real estate expert. They shouldn't have to be a tax expert. They shouldn't have to be capable of launching their own restaurant or bar or bakery. You shouldn't have to be a stock picker. Why shouldn't the typical person just be able to take their money, put it into an asset which appreciates in value 15% a year, and they don't have to worry about it?
What about the S&P 500? They could just put it into the stock market.
Now that's the gist of it, man. I want y'all to understand what he's saying, okay? So here's what I want you to take away from this whole conversation, man. First of all, he's talking about Bitcoin, but did you hear him? He's really talking about asset accumulation. We shouldn't have to be so backed up and have to beg to spend what belongs to us, what we worked for. You see what I mean? So now, here's the thing. You don't have to become a Michael Saylor or even a Michael Favors for that much. No, you don't need all the billions of dollars. You don't have to have all of this thing to make it work for you, you know? But what you should develop, watch this, is the habit of asking. No, what? Asking what? Develop the habit. I want y'all to write this down. Develop a habit of asking, where is the world going? I say this all the time. Our job is to find out in terms of financial education, financial awareness, where the market is going, what's going, and you get there. So what does that mean? The new economy, y'all, what does technologies are changing or what technologies are changing how businesses operate? Obviously, AI is the golden child right now because AI is affording people to to utilize AI to speed up productivity. Still need human connection. So I don't believe AI gonna replace us like that because they still need programming. And even still, they can't make the emotional, moral, characteristic decisions that a human being can. No, I don't care how much you develop a computer, it doesn't have a soul like we do. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that right there. But we can use it, you know. So think about it. What technologies are changing in business? What's happening with money? What's happening with money and ownership? What's happening with AI? What's happening with blockchain and tokenization and technology? Now, most importantly, when I say where's the world going, where's the world going? What changes could affect your career? What changes can affect your business, your family, and the way in which you prepare for your future? This is what I'm asking. And why I want you to write that question down. Where is the world going? And most importantly, ask yourself this question. Am I educating myself for the economy that's coming? Now, I was saying this year, I used to be a teacher, you all. And I'll tell you, I had a client and I'm mentoring them, but they asked me a question about their kids. And I say, listen, you want to tell your child or maybe if they're going to go to college, major in something that when they come out, when they graduate, something that's going to be in demand. Because if you do not, your child will go and rack up all that money, getting all that debt, and come out and won't be able to find a job because the way technology and education and information is moving so fast. You can go to YouTube University now. You can go to Udemy and go. Some of the courses are free and get the same knowledge. You know, I'm just gonna tell y'all the truth. And so now when I ask, are you preparing? That was me telling that client to prepare their child for what's coming out. So they said, well, what is that? I said, look into green, look into crypto, look into AI. And the way things are moving so fast now, in 5 years, some of the things that's new today gonna be outdated because it's moving that fast. So that means you got to develop an ability in your field to move with the times. Now, don't get me wrong. It's also certain jobs that we know that's going to be here. You're going to always need doctors. You're going to always need nurses. You know, you're going to always need some lawyers, right? Business lawyers, corporate lawyers, you know, you're always going to need some therapy. You know, people, that's why if you know I'm a coach, I coach mindset and, you know, I coach mindset, money, awareness, and the new economy because those three things are always going to be needed. If the currency change, if we go back to bartering or go to the gold standard, silver, whatever, you still gonna need concepts of understanding how to deal with these things. Of course, the mindset. So that's always there. So now, here's what I want you to understand. This actually is one of the reasons why I really like this clip because I've personally become so interested in what's happening with the blockchain, with digital economy. Y'all been following me for a while. Y'all see, I've been studying it. I've been learning it. I've been learning how it works, how it can affect my life, and how we can benefit from it, and the whole ecosystem, you all. But now, you know, I'm not going to turn this into a video business presentation. I got that, but instead, here's what I will tell you: if you're curious about what I'm personally involved in as it relates to this, you know, some of the plays, some of the ETFs, some of the investments. And I look for investments that solve two things. Number one, immediate cash flow, because we have to live life, but also long-term investment income. That's the residual. That is the thing that can help you set up for that. And so I have a private presentation that walks you through what I'm in and how we getting it and how we're solving those two problems for me and my family and my friends. Now, if you're interested in that, there's going to be a link down in the description. Click that link, enter your information, and I'll be sure to send you the email and get you set up with that. And then you can watch it and, you know, you can do some research. It's a conversation starter, but I'm going to be exposed you, making you aware of what's coming, you know, and you can ask questions. And if you decide that it's something you'd like to do more, we can talk about it, right? So as we get ready to wrap this up, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you got something from this because whether you ever watch information like this, whether you watch a presentation of mine in the past or whatnot, I want you to remember something. Remember one thing, don't ever be afraid of learning something new. This concept that you hear me talking about now, the new economy, is coming. It's here. So you don't be afraid of it simply because it's different from the way you grew up or the old economy you grew up in. No, you just learn. You know, you ask some questions. That's why I always tell y'all, you like, subscribe, turn the bell notification on, but now leave some comments down below. Ask me some questions. Let me know because I can go do that research. I got time to do it. And I can bring it back and give you my perspective of it. Or, you know, we can have conversation. You can give me your perspective of it, you know? Now, because some of the greatest opportunities throughout history, you all, first appeared as change before it actually appeared as opportunity. Many people don't realize that opportunity sometimes can be wrapped in opposition. That means it requires a little work. So I wanted to show you all this because Michael Saylor made his decision about Bitcoin. And the bigger question for you and I is, what are we doing? What are you doing to prepare yourself for what's next? So, ladies and gentlemen, if conversations about mindset and money and the new economy is what you're interested in, if it interests you, then do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, turn that notification bell on, and get ready because that's exactly what we're going to be talking about here on this channel. So, as always, this is Doc Favors. I thank you all so much in advance. I'll see you in the next video.